Our next question comes from probably the best name of anyone who submits questions to this show, Jimmy. Armageddon T. Thunderbird.
Yeah, I know Armageddon. He comes to LexCon.
And actually, he's asking about a video that I uploaded. So let's hear this. I recently stumbled across a video called GCW Superstars Final Show on YouTube. I decided to watch it because it showed the beloved Jim Cornette in the thumbnail. My joy of watching something I hadn't seen before was immediately turned into confusion, then sadness, then rage. It was like someone had taken the entire Memphis promotion and ran it through a copier machine that was low on toner. That's really funny. There is Memphis TV's opening and music. There's Cornette and Dundee and Adrian Street and King Carl Fergie. And then the fucking fantastic ones come out to Everybody Wants You by Billy Squier. Having been voted the greatest Fabulous Ones fan, I'll say that again. The greatest Fabulous Ones fan by the readers of PWI in 1983. Really? My blood immediately became angered up. I used to think that the fucking Fantastic Ones were just a cheap copy of the Fabs, but now having seen them in action, I now realize calling them a cheap copy is an insult to cheap copies. I'm surprised Terry and Bobby didn't change their names to Steve and Stan. Having said that, my question is to you, Mr. Cornette. You were there. Why didn't you put a stop to it and tell those gimmick-stealing anuses to think up something original? It would have been a mercy killing to all of us Fabulous Ones fans. I also feel Jerry Jarrett owes us an apology for having anything to do with that. I'm surprised they didn't have a tag team called the Midday Express, managed by Jim Cornette. So in closing, I'd have to say keep up the good work, and fuck the Fantastic Ones. Fuck them right in the ear. See you at LexCon.
Oh, my Armageddon. I'm going to have to spank you on your wrist when I see you for not first of all, they didn't have a Jim Cornette in the Midnight Express because I didn't have a Jim Cornette in the Midnight Express yet. But, am I going to bore people? Does everybody know this story of how it got to that point? Or would I be boring people to tell it again? Or is this something I'm just assuming that people know and they don't know?
Of any story that anyone may have said, I hope Jim Cornette never tells that story again, this is not one of them.
Okay. In the summer of 1983, Jerry Lawler had just taken the book back from Bill Dundee because Lawler had requested from Jerry Jarrett to give him half the company or otherwise he's going to walk and start his own deal, which I'm sure sounded eerily reminiscent of 6 years before to the month when Jerry Jarrett did the same thing from Nick Goulas. So Lawler got his half the company and got the book, and Dundee was basically the ex-booker, which is always uncomfortable. And there was a ton of talent around Tennessee because some of the guys that Dundee had hung around and Lawler had brought new guys in. And at the same time, Jerry Jarrett, as a promoter in Tennessee, was talking to Ole Anderson as a promoter in Atlanta, and Georgia Championship Wrestling off of TBS and the early cable. Their northern tours in Grand Rapids and Lansing, Saginaw, Michigan, and Cleveland, Ohio, and Columbus, Ohio, and Cincinnati and Wheeling, West Virginia, and et cetera, et cetera. And the big spectaculars at the Omni were doing well because they had all the stars, and the old Georgia territory, which was Macon, Georgia, Columbus, Georgia, occasionally Albany, Georgia, Marietta right outside of Atlanta, plus Chattanooga and Knoxville, Tennessee, and Augusta, James Brown's hometown. Towns like that weren't doing that well, and they didn't have all the stars on them because they were always up north. And so Ole had basically come to an agreement with Jerry Jarrett that he could have some of Jarrett's talent that he didn't need. And I'll explain how I fell in that category in a minute. That he didn't need. And they would do the local television at a station in Chattanooga at a studio, and they'd put it on the Georgia towns, and we'd have a separate Georgia crew. And as long as it didn't get any worse than it did at the start, Ole said we could keep doing it. So with absolutely no notice to the people whatsoever, one week we show up and do a studio show in Chattanooga that starts airing the next fucking week, right, in the rest of the territory. And so it was Bobby Fulton and Terry Taylor who were told, we didn't put a stop to anything, or I didn't put a stop to anything except if I said no, they'd put a stop to my $65 a night guarantee 6 nights a week. So we would have worn ballet fucking slippers and done tutu fucking dances if they'd have told us to. And see, nobody outside the Memphis territory knew that the fabulous ones, Stan and Steve, existed. They had not been on anybody else's TV yet. So across the fucking mountain range, over in Knoxville and Chattanooga and down in Georgia, nobody knew shit from apple butter. So they even redid the down to the flashing strobe light and the poses in the same outfits, the fucking First Fabs video to Everybody Wants You. They redid everything, but with Bobby and Terry Taylor. And they didn't need Carl Fergie and the King, and they didn't need Frank Morrell, the Angel, or the bounty hunter Jerry Novak. And Dundee got the chance to book it because that got him out from under Lawler's shadow, and they had the biggest week of business in history of Memphis territory for the loser leave town matches in every town. They did like $120,000 at the gate that week. And Dundee and he brought Norman Frederick Charles in because, Norman was looking for a spot. And there was a few local guys like Brett Sawyer, and Ken Wayne went as the stray cat, right? It was just a ragtag bunch of people they didn't need in Tennessee. And I was, of course, the junior manager. So here I go. But it gave me a chance to learn. And I'm out there cutting promos I'm managing 4 guys, this dynasty of champions, right? So we did this for like 6 weeks, and we got the houses up actually in all those towns from like nothing to next to nothing. We had made it. It was like they were up like an average of $700-800 across the board. And Ole came in and said, don't do this anymore. Right. So he's referring to the final show. The last show in Chattanooga was an outlaw television show because Ole had already told Dundee and Ronnie West, who was working as a referee and basically the office. When I could ride with Bill Dundee and Ronnie West, that was riding with the entire office of this wrestling promotion. The booker, the assistant booker, the top single heel and the head referee. So that's how I got to learn. But anyway, Ole came in at interviews like on a Tuesday or Wednesday at the TBS offices and says, "No, just shut it down now." Well, they still had a spot show in, oh God, I wish I had my book in front of me, but Athens, Alabama, Gadsden, Alabama, maybe. The following fucking 2 weeks from then that Ronnie West had set up and all the talent was around because we could still run it. And I guess Ole relied on Ronnie telling the TV studio in Chattanooga that we weren't going to do this show anymore. Well, Ronnie didn't tell him for a week. He didn't tell him until after we did the following Saturday show. So they'd already taken all the banners and all the stuff with the Georgia wrestling logos and everything. So it was just like they used the Memphis TV open that they took off a VHS tape on the open and the close for the show. And there were no banners in the studio. And it was Michael St. John down from Nashville doing the announcing. And we did an outlaw TV show that just basically kept the deal going for one more week until we could run Gadsden, Alabama, or whatever it was, following Saturday night. And that was the last episode of that TV that there was.